MarTechTalk, the live webinar with no presentations, no PowerPoint, just talk.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of MarTechTalk. I'm your host Luke, and this week we're going to be talking about the subject of, are your humans holding back your MarTech? It sounds very sci-fi, but it's something we're dealing with right now, and it's an issue it's going to define how we work forward in the future. So got a couple of guests with us to talk about this, specialists in the area who have been dealing with AI as it's been coming up in the past and are working towards that in the future. So first of all, if you could unmute yourself and turn on your camera, please, Adam. We've got Adam, who's the head of marketing at Crunch. Hi, Adam.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me, Luke.
Thanks for joining us. And we've also got Alejandro, head of MarTech Middle Americas at AB InBev. Are you there, Alejandro? Hello. Oh, we're not hearing you there, but I'm seeing you. Well, I'll leave that to the MarTech Fairy to help on that one because we're not hearing you. But thank you for joining us today. So we're going to be talking about a couple of issues. The first is gaining buy-in at board level, and which metrics matter and demonstrate ROI of AI. Then we're going to move on and talk about, are you the blocker? What does AI need to deliver to win your trust? And then finally, we're going to move into the last section, and that's staff development to make the most of AI. Where are the training quick wins? So hoping to get some tips for sort of future planning. But before we get into all that, we've got this week's news item. The link should be coming up shortly for you. And it's a story about Nestle and how they are using AI now to set creative rules for its 15,000 marketers across the globe. Should we start off with you, Adam? Wondering what your take was on this, perhaps your experiences and what you think. Well, if you think this is the way things are going.
Firstly, very large business, of course, and I think what's been in the press recently is about guardrails for the AI. So we've seen some crazy things that Bing have done, Bard has done since it's been launched, and ChatGPT before that, and about defining those guardrails. I think one thing that's perhaps not really been talked about is what guardrails and policies are in place internally to make sure that it's being used in the right way. And I think a lot of that is, certainly from my side, is how can we build confident guardrails to have confidence in what it's delivering, so it's not hallucinating. Being in the accountancy world, the software world, we need to make sure that everything we're saying is accurate. We can't be giving, a regulated industry, so we can't just go out and use it AI willy-nilly. So you have to be very careful. Similar considerations for Nestle, obviously, with they're providing food and beverages and that sort of thing. So they've got to be very careful about how they use the technology to make sure that they're not saying things they shouldn't be. So putting these policies and procedures in place is super important, because then it allows you to be creative within those boundaries. And I think that's key.
Thank you. Yeah, and Alejandro, I'm not sure if this sounds working for you now, but yeah, you mentioned beverages there, and that's obviously the industry you're in. So I wonder what your take is on Nestle's move.
Yes, this is a smart move on how to proceed on use artificial intelligence to the benefit of the business. If we can drive a specific squad and a dedicated team to attach business needs, it's a way to test it out how consumer journeys can be enhanced by artificial intelligence, not only using quite easy prompts. If we can give artificial intelligence more context and understand what we are asking to these machine learning algorithms and natural language processes, we can get rid of repetitive tasks. We can automate specific actions that some human needs to take daily basis. And we are also discussing and taking care about the law and the government modifications of using AI. This is kind of new for us, and we are taking this very seriously. We got a global headquarters support to deliver the best possible results for the company, not only trusting the privacy policies. We are trying to develop the best ecosystem for protect our consumers' data and our confidential information.
Yeah, you mentioned the board level there, which I think would be a good opportunity to move on into our first section, which was gaining buy-in at board level, which metrics matter, and which demonstrate ROI of AI. I did mention it, Alejandro, but we'll jump back across to Adam, and then we'll jump back across to you again and hear more from you.
Yeah, so many questions, so little time. I think my journey with AI really sort of began, I'd say, sort of September last year, with Jasper in particular in my previous role, and looking at how we could potentially use that to speed up what we were doing. Relatively small team, not supported by agencies, so clearly we need to find efficiencies and drive ROI as a marketing team, but also as a business. And we were looking at AI and how that could improve the customer journey, support our customers and ultimately their customers as well. So that was quite an interesting process. It was very early days, and I think a lot of people perhaps weren't quite ready for it. So ChatGPT sort of exploded, and I've been doing research into what success looks like for quite some time since. I'm not there yet, confidently, with what success looks like, what the ROI is, how it can be properly used within the business day to day. I think there's still quite a lot of testing and learning and sort of feeding back, but certainly within my team, there is that kind of openness to see what comes back when we use different things, be open about how perhaps we can use it to support what we need to do. Buy-in from obviously from the board. Everyone wants more for less, as we well know, particularly in the marketing world. So how can we use these tools to support the minds that are in there already, the smart people in there? I must give them superhuman powers, but not necessarily take over their day-to-day work. Allow them to focus on what they're really good at. So it doesn't quite answer your question, but I know I'm not there yet, because things, as soon as something kind of feels like it's settling, something else happens, something else comes out, something, API plugin, ChatGPT plugins, GPT-4, Bard, all these things keep moving forward, and it's, you almost want it to take a step back so you can catch up a little bit. So it can be a little bit overwhelming. So certainly from my side, until I've got that confidence, it's hard to get the full buy-in internally into exactly how to use these platforms.
So you mentioned some big names there: ChatGPT, Jasper, Bard. Are they the kind of tools that you're using to go to the board because they're such well-known names and they're coming from such big brands? So rather than using metrics, you're kind of leveraging these names at the moment while those metrics aren't yet settled.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're kind of talking about how we can kind of, the just little things like the AIDA framework for how to structure content, for example. Humans can be quite terrible at that unless you properly think it out, because you constantly want to get to the end. What's your point at the end? Conclusions or introductions when you've done a blog post or a report, we can be quite terrible at that as humans, because we're naturally sort of minded to what the end result is, or what the CTA is, not necessarily on what the journey is for the customer. So these tools can do a very good job of assimilating that information and reordering it in the way that we need to And I know there's lots of issues with bias and hallucinations and various other things, but it can get us 80, 90% of the way there. One example I've used very recently is a webinar, very successful webinar that we did using AI tool to turn it into 10 different types of content, blog posts, social media posts, even a transcript of the entire webinar, and sort of shared that back and went, I'm not going to share it. I don't think it's there. It needs work. But what do you think of it? What do you think? Because we'd never be able to have the time and resources to make all this content to support this webinar after the fact. What do you think? So I've kind of used that as an example of a good way to use that, and I've shared it back with the person that did the webinar, because he kind of led it, was one of the people on it, so it makes sense to kind of share it and get his direct opinion on the quality, to see how much work you feel it would take to actually turn that into a full piece of content, or various types of pieces of content. So little things like that, those little experiments can really sort of tell you whether, yes, it's a really good investment, and would save us a lot of time and produce more content that is relevant and timely, based on human interactions as the base point and the source. So we'll see how that goes. It's a tool that I've used personally before, and I really, really like, but using it myself for my own hobbies and various things, and using it in a corporate environment is not the same thing. So just need to be clearly mindful of that.
Yeah, great. It sounds like you're really on the front line with these tools, really testing these things.
Yeah, I like to think so. But there's so many out there now. ChatSpot from HubSpot as well is another one. CTO made it himself, linked in Chat GPT into HubSpot, made this entire new tool, and it's absolutely fascinating. It's absolutely brilliant. Is it right for business though? That's another question, and he kind of puts his hands up and says that might not be right for everyone, but this is what I've made with it. Go and have a play. So it's really, really interesting. There's lots going on there.
Brilliant. Hi, Dan. Been joined by Dan. Anyone else joining us? If you want to pop any questions in the side there, feel free. For now, Alejandro, if I pass over to you, we're on the subject of metrics and ROI of AI. Where do you feel you stand at the moment?
Yes, the ROI is some of the quite difficult metrics to measure for the business. So far, we are trying to improve 3 KPIs. The first one is to cost savings in terms of repetitive tasks, get rid of some third-party vendors, and save some money externalizing the content and reducing human errors. We are trying to improve the customer satisfaction from call centers, from our audios, from our NPS, to avoid repetitive tasks from there and analyze the same questions over and over again. And we can train those models to bring the best benefits for the company in the low-hanging fruits. And we are also measuring time savings in terms of repetitive tasks, on how the creative team can create subtitles in a lot of minutes instead hours or days. We are trying to explore the huge universe of artificial intelligence into 2 or 3 specific consumer journeys, so we can place specific KPIs to achieve that business goals. We are also pointing to improve the way that we create content, not the final piece, because we are placing some intermediate rules for the company and making sure that the content creation could be inspirational from these generational AIs. No, we heard about Midjourney and other artificial intelligence, and we are training that tools to create the first drafts of an idea to present to internal stakeholders. We are measuring so far the artificial intelligence inside the company with benefits, like I mentioned, cost savings, customer satisfaction, and time savings. That will reflect when we run the proper analysis on these technologies the specific business metrics pointed to our business goals.
That's quite a lot of metrics to manage. So I imagine that is a role in itself. Who's in charge of doing that? Is it someone who's already in house, or is that a specific role that's being created to manage all those new metrics?
No, we are part of an specialized technology department on AB InBev. So we created a dedicated squad while we shared different knowledge from designers, from different vendors, from other directors, from data and analytics, from the MarTech teams, specialized machine learning engineers, so we can prepare and consolidate different knowledge from different areas and trace the best consumer journeys for the company and trace specific metrics to understand if this is a successful pilot or not.
And how far along are you in that now? Then is this something that's been going on for months, for years? Do you have an end date in mind?
We have been running this for probably a couple of months. And this is kind of new technology for us, and we got the third version of ChatGPT, and now we are testing the fourth version of ChatGPT. We are running different experiments with their API in local environments, so we can test it out and protect our information before create a final product that we can deliver to our customers or make it public. So we first need to ensure the quality assurance of each prompt or each architecture that we build before going public. And we are getting this very serious because privacy policies are not the cybersecurity final end. And we need to make sure that the whole experiments that we are running are compliant with local regulations and probably global guidelines for the company to improve how we are getting results for the business.
That does sound very interesting about the local guidelines and government compliance, and we'll come back to that, I think, in a moment. Give you a little breather for a minute. Move back over to Adam. I think we'll move on to our next talking point. Are you the blocker? What does AI need to deliver to win your trust? You spoke earlier about you've been testing it a fair bit there, Adam. And I mean, your trust, the trust of the company,
Yeah, I mean, it's like with all things, isn't it? If you don't sound confident in recommended something, then it shows, unless you're really good at blagging it, which I'm far too honest for my own good. But it's strategy first, isn't it? It always should be strategy first. This is a MarTech talk, obviously, and it's all about tech, but it should always be, and it's something I've learned over the years, the hard way. New shiny toys, jump in, and then you're like, oh, what can I use this for? It's kind of the wrong way around, isn't it? MarTech tools have done a great job of making us forget it's which way around it should be. So I'm naturally guarded with new technology now, having worked at very large companies and just understanding the processes. I'm naturally guarded and conservative around the potential uses until I feel confident to recommend it. Just will it fit into the strategy? Will it help us hit our KPIs? Will it fit into and support our OKRs? Those kind of questions that I'm asking, and if so, if it does support those things, how then could we use that to do so? And that's kind of the process that we're kind of going through, and that's my mindset. I've done a lot of testing of quite a few different tools, not all of them. There are many out there, and I find new ones every day. But how could AI support these goals that we've got creating? That's the thing where it makes me the blocker, because I don't want to just go out and use it any which way, because there's so much potential for this. It is kind of feels like a the next industrial revolution to a lot of people, and I'd be inclined to agree. It does feel like that watershed moment. So what it looks like in the future, I don't know. But my favourite thing recently is Tom Fishburne, the marketingist, put out a picture yesterday. A marketeer saying, "Chat GPT, make me an email from one bullet point," and then someone on the other side saying, "Turn this marketing email into one bullet point and tell me what it means." It's kind of, are we going to get to that point where we're going to create all this content and we're just going to have tools on the other side that are just going to distill it back into what it was, just removing the point of the whole process in the first place, which is both funny but actually quite telling, and much like many of his cartoons. So yeah.
Thank you. I'll pass over to you, Alejandro.
Thank you. I believe that this technology is a reflection of the human knowledge, how we provide context to these tools, and how can we create a prompt engineering to get the best of these tools will make the difference with the output that we are placing. We are not trusting this by 100%. We are running a process to fact checking, to remove outliers, to understand and making QA to the first response that we are getting. But so far, we can delegate them easy task, so we can deliver or automate that decisions that we are taking daily basis, plan our agenda, discuss on meeting points, that kind of easy activities that we run daily basis. This can help us to build some briefs, to prepare some user stories for running a pitch with an agency. These basic activities that can be adjust later, we can trust them. But if we are trying to get big things of AI, we need to prompt engineering. We need to provide more context to this artificial intelligence, because they are trained with a lot of data, 400 million of data. They are like the new way to think. This AI needs to show you how to create the better instructions for the computer, so we can get the better outcomes for solve our business problem. And after we got a solution or an answer to our prompt, we place those recommendations or advices to our specific teams to make fact checking, to avoid outliers, and to remove some biases or ethical dilemmas that AI can deliver to us if we are asking basic prompts or basic questions.
Yeah, and on the subject of ethical dilemmas, Dan from the audience has put in a great question here. And he says, with ChatGPT and other generative AI, how do the panelists feel about needing to show that content has been produced by AI, like product placing on TV? Adam, do you want to start off on that one?
No, absolutely. And this is, I write a weekly-ish newsletter on LinkedIn called Tech You Out. I've been running it for over a year now. Started as a trial to see what LinkedIn newsletters are all about, see if it would be a good channel to do. And the topic has naturally been around AI for probably about the last 3 months or so. And one thing I did last week was train the Chat GPT on myself, because I've been writing the same blog for 10 years about London. And it didn't do an amazing job. I kind of read it and went, is that me? But for the most part, and what I asked it to do, and it's something I've wanted a tool for years, is to take a press release, normally full of superlatives and amazing, wow, the best thing ever, strip that out and actually give me the bare bones of it that I can work with, because it's just fluff. It's just PR fluff. No offense to anyone who's in PR, but it's always hyped up. So if I'm writing a blog about something, I should strip that back, be a bit more balanced. I'm not BuzzFeed, for example. No offense to BuzzFeed either. So I did it. I went through the process using my knowledge and my experience of ChatGPT, got an output that I really liked, got some additional information about Silent Pool Gin and the Cheshire Cheese, oldest pub in London, did some minor tweaking. The whole thing took 10 minutes. Kind of felt like me for the most part, was informative, was interesting, was something I wouldn't have had time to put out otherwise, but it was a nice exercise to kind of go through that. And my blog's always been sort of a bit of an experimental place to try things out that wouldn't necessarily get me fired. So that's always a nice air gap between reality and hobbies. And one of the people I know who's written for me previously, he asked exactly that question: should you be putting on there this article has been written by AI? And I think I need to. Honestly, even though I've told it to be trained on me, even though the original information's come from a third party source, it's been added to, it's been rearranged. I think it does need to be sort of pinned in some way to say it's been edited or something like that to clearly state that it has done. One of the things separately from that I'm looking at is if we touch anything with AI, we clearly flag that within the brief, the documentation where it has. If Google decides to suddenly start penalizing people that have used AI in their work, then we need to know where those bits are being penalized. So it's a really good ethical question. And I think it's something not too dissimilar from influencers and being paid for adverts in some ways, where it's clearly there's an influence by a third party that's had an effect on the reason for that content existing in the first place. So I think there should and possibly will be some regulation at some point around it.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Great answer. Alejandro, where do you sit on that?
Yes, we have been discussing this with the digital ethics team, and we are planning to modify our privacy policies from our website and prepare at least a recommendation or placing a badge to declare that we are using AI to create some content to personalize some ideas that we are placing into our social media. We are trying to get a final solution to this one, but the ethical dilemma is this is a new revolution. This is the future. Soon the content won't be identifiable if we're written by a AI or a human. So we need to declare and prepare the ethics thing to declare that a TV ad were produced by artificial intelligence, or a content for our blogs were also produced by our artificial intelligence algorithms. We are getting rid of digital ethics and compliance dilemmas and protecting the company from probably a biased response from the AI, so we can avoid any kind of problems in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, like Adam said, creating an AI that can reduce content into a simplified form. If things get missed out, problems could occur. So it makes sense to have that ethical standpoint. We've got another question here, actually, from Alex in the audience. Thanks, Alex. What do you do in your respective firms to help change the narrative that automation is here to render us all jobless? The AI jobless debate. Adam, let's start with you.
Good question. Good question. Do you know, it's difficult, isn't it? Because we don't know what we don't know. So how do you make someone feel confident about something where the power of this seems limitless? The thing that is my North Star with all this is, and everyone says Bing's got or Microsoft's got so much to gain and so little to lose. I mean, that in itself is incorrect, because the amount of licenses they sell for Microsoft 365, if half the workforce stopped working tomorrow and got taken over by AI, think about how many licenses they'd suddenly lose. So they've got a lot to lose in that regard. And Chat GPT as an organization, OpenAI, probably less to lose and all to gain, because purely that's their job, right? Is to make the best AI. That's what they've decided to do. So it's really difficult to say that. What I would say is, if you are doing something that you love at the moment, can it genuinely be your assistant, so you can focus more on the bits that you really enjoy and hand over the stuff that you don't? There's always stuff in marketing or designing or various other things that you just don't like, that AI might be able to support you with a little bit better. It's early days with AI. I don't know which way it's going to go. I wouldn't like to think, wouldn't like to speculate. I've tried, and it's already wrong, and it's not even April yet. So, yeah, but we don't know. I mean, for now, I think we're okay, but again, I think marketing AI will eat itself. As a comment by Dan, it does kind of feel like it, if it runs away with itself and everyone's out of a job, then there's no business need for businesses to use AI, because they're not making any money, because no one's got any money to buy anything. So it seems quite self-defeating, really, in that regard. So it depends how quickly things move and which direction. But yeah, I know that's not an answer.
That's good. It's a good answer. Thank you. Yeah. And Alejandro?
Yes, I believe that more than AI taking our jobs, this is more like an opportunity to prepare specialized knowledge, to prepare the roles of the future that we can create with AI, to make things 10 times faster, to think better and create higher incomes. No, we will need to embrace the change and discuss what activities can get rid of AI and what other activities can or necessarily needs to be by a human, so we can getting things 10 times faster, so we can improve the organizational culture. We need to create a change management policies, so we can prepare, train, and upskill our specialized resources, human resources. And this is a huge opportunity for the next generations. They are planning, some companies are currently hiring prompt engineers. No, this is kind of new profession or a specialized task, and they are paying 6 figures in the US. No, this is a potential source of income for next generations in the future.
Great, thanks. And that ties into Sapna's question here, where she says, yes, this is the future, not being able to tell AI from human in marketing, content, and campaign activity. But the coming crisis will be in human resources. Where in the world do we find the people to manage and run AI-led campaigns? Which I think you've answered that there. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Adam, or if that covers it.
No, I just had a thought from what was said just there. So there are some other areas that perhaps haven't been touched on or I haven't read about. That's not, so the 4-day week, for example, is something that has exploded in recent times. A lot of businesses don't feel like they can, with their current capacity and amount of work that they need to do. Is this an opportunity to embrace AI, to allow 4-day weeks to happen, or to not work overtime and actually do the 9 to 5? Many people, particularly in agencies, work incredibly long hours. Is this a way for them to actually have 9 to 5 normalized within their day to day, but everyone works, there's the same number of jobs in theory? So I just wanted to add that was very interesting how you were talking there, and it made me think back to a different way of thinking about it. Sorry.
That's a good point. That's the dream, isn't it? To just do your 9 to 5 and not have to. Yeah, I mean, I suppose the issue then would be making that, incentivizing that to the higher ups. You know, what positive? How does that help them? I suppose.
I suppose less chance of burnout. If you do pay overtime, you don't have to pay that out. More productivity, more things delivered on time. With all these things, though, you know, the more you offer from a productivity perspective, I'm not talking about myself, just general awareness, the more that's asked of you, right? Naturally. Oh, wait, if you can get all this done, wait, maybe you can get this done as well. That's, you know, a natural thing. I've experienced it my entire career. You know, it's like, what else? You know, it's always finding that balance. So, you know, it does need to come from the top, and it perhaps does need a bit of a mindset change. But there has been a huge, you know, look towards sort of reducing burnout, you know, 4-day weeks or 9-day fortnights. Why can't AI help more of us do that? That's not a pitch for me internally at the moment, but you know, it does give me food for thought.
Yeah, it sounds ideal. Sounds great. It makes me think about, you know, the individuals having responsibility for their personal AI and lumping that into their time, rather than it being the AI has done that, so you've got spare time to do this. It's kind of that you did that with your AI.
Yeah, it's almost at odds with, I'm under pressure. How do I get this delivered in time? Oh wait, I'm just going to throw it in AI and see what happens. That'll do, and just to like finish that task and just get it out of the way. That's kind of the separate concern on the other side, is that quality control aspect. I know we've talked about it already, but there are some tools that are clearly coming out now around corporate enterprise AI with these guardrails and policies in place. So it's clearly something that's going to grow and grow and grow, and have more emphasis on. Some, as we've heard, will going ahead without waiting. Some companies will wait until those tools are in place before properly embarking. So,
which brings us on nicely to our next point, because it's about quick wins, and I think what we've been talking about there is ethics and taking the time to work out how we're going to use the metrics, how we're going to put guardrails in place. But are there any quick wins at the moment in terms of staff development, making the most of AI, in terms of training? Yeah, quick wins right now. In either of your experience, we'll start with you, Alejandro. But have you had any quick wins tips for us?
Yes, I believe that this is a huge world, and we cannot get 100% of the knowledge in the right terms. So, as I was saying, if we can plan consumer journeys or audience journeys based on AI, and we can train people how to embrace the change, how to get rid of repetitive tasks, and probably get this 4-day week that we were mentioned before, we can get that internal thinking process and delegate some specific activities to AI, so we can make 10 times faster within our daily basis. No, we can discuss about machine learning algorithms. We can discuss about even maths, no, binary codes. But we believe if we can start demonstrating how can we be more productive and deliver the same results using less company resources, we will be on the right way to train the people. No, we can train with a specific tool for a specific niche for the company and get 1,000 copies in a minute, and then dedicate time to process and to adapt the brand guidelines that we are placing for our companies. We can also train subtitles. No, we need to understand first the business need, and then dedicate a specific upskilling strategy for that specific niche, so we can get some quick wins and going for delivering results and trying to deliver MVP, so we can dedicate more time later on to specialized content.
Okay, thank you. I'll pass over to you, Adam.
Yeah, I obviously mentioned quick wins previously, with regards to like taking a webinar, turning that into various types of content, to support that webinar. That's a quick win. That's something that if you're a team of one and you're trying to do 10x content, like we've heard lots about over the years, that's a lot of work for someone to do. If you're doing a podcast, for example, that's another great example. How do you turn that into extra pieces of content that might be SEO friendly or good for social media or good for an email newsletter? You've spent an hour editing something you recorded for half an hour. You know, it can quite easily turn into an entire day's worth of work to try and do this. It becomes a second job. So it allows people to perhaps follow some passions that they wouldn't do previously. Something I like to do from an ideation perspective. I've worked in social media for years, but it's always about what key points from a blog post, for example, can I pull out and topics I can pull out from the same bit. How can I do that? You know, AI can give me that information like that. Still needs hand holding, still needs support, still needs to make sure that it's on brand and everything else, but it takes me much closer, much quicker than me kind of, particularly if I'm in a rush or I've got writer's block, which happens. It just gives me that nudge. It's really good doing so. Kind of looking at using it instead of Lauren Ipsum in web page design is an interesting one. Lauren Ipsum's there for a reason. It's unbiased, and it's just words, just filler, of course. But we're trialing it to see if it helps us build pages better, provides a bit of context, but just seeing if it brings in bias or not about what the end result of the. So we have to be careful about whether that is a quick win, but that's very good at showing people what the end result might look like. So there's loads of potentials for quick wins, like so many. Making pictures or images, for example, less so, but that's probably because I'm not prompting it well enough. Quick win though is family wise. Me and my son have been making fake pretend Pokemon style characters and doing it together and kind of playing with prompts and things like that. And he's like, what if we had a Pokemon that had this and this and this? And it's just like throwing up endless possibilities. That's just actually quite good fun. That's not saving anyone any time, but it's just something that's, like finding those uses together. Whereas we might sit down and try and badly draw something instead. So little things like that. Won't be publishing them, won't be doing any copyright issues with Pokemon, don't worry. But just for internal use only. But yeah, there's almost too much choice for what you can use AI for quick wins for.
I realise we're running low on time here, but I did wonder about sort of in terms of humans holding back AI, who is in charge of what? You mentioned developing lorem ipsum there, so would that be sort of the AI gets handed over to the IT department, web developers, or is it something that gets handed about, or how do you think that's gonna? Well, we haven't got long, but how do you think that's going to work in terms of sharing the AI around the business?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I don't know if Eliandro has any better recommendations than I for that one. Just for a project that I did before handover, had a clear brief, clear high level understanding, and I just went through some prompts and some ideation to get it to a point where I could then start playing around with a copy, knowing what the wireframe will probably look like, and then be able to hand that over and saying, what does it look like with this? Does it seem to flow? And then just kind of just using it as a concept, see if that would actually work. And that's the first time we've kind of gone down that process.
Yes, we are using some tools to improve our efficiency coding. We are using Copilot. We are delivering the humans the activity to change our architecture to protect our specific private keys, to run the connections. But ChatGPT offers us the way to translate a simple draft into a a specific website, as you were mentioned, but we are using coding and the whole knowledge or the technical knowledge of different languages to process like the whole draft, and then we are running a QA to be compliant with the privacy policies, with our internal development skills, and prepare, and not being able to offer this AI the whole management of the IT department. We are the humans, we got the knowledge, and we are just training that tool to prepare what we are asking. Imagine that we can have a personal assistant on our phones on the future, so we can asking simple questions on or solving code issues or doing bug fixing, because sometimes a bug can be detonated by a typo. We can prepare our mind to get the best of these AI tools instead delegating the whole activity, because at the end of the day, humans will need to supervise the outcomes.
Okay, very good.
I think that's just to echo his point there. Of course, AI has been built by humans. It clearly needs to be checked by humans at the end, because it's probably imperfect to start with, because humans are imperfect. So the output's always going to be slightly imperfect, perhaps. So having that finalized by a human, I think, is always going to be incredibly valuable.
That's a great point, and it brings me to our final question this week, because we're running out of time now. Shortest answer you can do it in 10 words or less. Is AI going to make more jobs or take away more jobs? I realize that's very derivative of what we just discussed, but
I'm going to use my my powers of not giving you an answer on that one. I don't know. I would like to glass half full. Yes, more rewarding jobs, but very different perhaps from what we have now.
awesome.
I believe that this is future. This will create a new opportunities for the new generations. Jobs will be evolved from automated thinking to strategic thinking, so we can deliver the same results with AI.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's us wrapping up for the week. Alejandro, Adam, thank you very much for joining us this week. Thanks for giving us such a clear glimmer of a glimpse into the future. Much appreciated. We'll be back same time next week. The subject being developing a sustainable model for effective personalization. But for now, time to say goodbye and thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a nice one.
Bye-bye.